During your adventures in Final Fantasy XIV, you hear about an old man with amazing blade work fighting in the Thanalan Coliseum. So you find an old man named Musosai, who is a samurai from Higashi. So he gives you a katana and asks you to fight to see if you can become a samurai, because he is looking for a pupil. And after proving yourself, you become Musai's student. Following this, Musosai explains that people became samurai during the Age of Blood in Higashi, and that being a samurai in the current day means protecting the peace. Then Musosai explains that you and him will journey across Eorzea to exorcise evil. However, before you start, a man named Momozigo, who has helped Musosai since he was in Thanalan, asks to join your journey to make money along the way, and Musosai lets him come along. During your journey, your trio stops slavers from selling a girl to some corrupted brass blades. Side note here, the brass blades are Thanalan's police force. But getting back to the story, your trio moves to Limsa Lominsa, where you kill a rich serial killer and defeat his fake samurai henchman named Ostrogen. Then your trio moves on to Gridania, where you find out that Momozigo scammed a lot of people out of a lot of money due to a bad situation, and that he's been on the run ever since. So Musosai exorcises the evil away from Momozigo, so Momozigo goes back to Gridania to make a deal to pay back his debt. But before you follow him, Musosai reveals that he's looking for a disgraced samurai known as Kogarashi, and that it's his duty to defeat him. Then your trio moves on to Ishgard, where you kill an evil lord who has murdered people that found out about his illegal business. Unfortunately, after this, Musosai gets sick and gets put on bed rest. However, soon after this, Musosai disappears, but he eventually approaches you. Musosai explains that Kogarashi's crime is that he trained a killer who eventually killed many Higan government dignitaries, and in Higashi culture, Kogarashi was held responsible because he was that killer's master. Then Musosai tells you killing Kogarashi is your final test and asks you to follow him to the Western Highlands because that's where Kogarashi is. Unfortunately, when you get there, Musosai reveals that he is Kogarashi and that he was never brave enough to own up to his actions by committing suicide, so he trained you to defeat himself. Then Musosai attacks you, forcing you to defend yourself, so you defeat Musosai. But Momozigo arrives and asks you to stop, so you exorcise Musai's evil, allowing the old samurai to rest in peace, as he thanks you and Momozigo for his final journey. Then Musosai passes away. After this, you and Momozigo bury Musosai on a cliff at the Silver Bazaar in Thanalan, facing the direction of Higashi. Then you go on your adventures in Stormblood, but at some point you go back to Uldar, where a samurai named Makoto is looking for Musosai. So you tell her the bad news and that you're his pupil. Following this, you take Makoto to Musai's grave so she can pay her respects. Then she tells you about Musai's other pupil, Ugetsu, who is trying to tear down the status quo by attacking the government of Higashi, in addition to many samurai joining his cause, and Ugetsu being spotted in Kugane. So Makoto asks for your help to take down Ugetsu, and after thinking about it, you follow her to Higashi, where you save her from her former comrades that joined Ugetsu. After the battle, Makoto explains that Higashi has a lot of classism and poverty issues. This leads people like her former comrades to adopt Ugetsu's views, and while she agrees with this point, Makoto doesn't want her homeland burned to the ground in the process of making change. Following this, Makoto brings you to Sekigumi headquarters in Kugane, where she asks you to not tell anyone that you're Musai's pupil. Side note here, the Sekigumi is Kugane's peacekeeping force. Then you're introduced to her ally Shiden and her captain Kongo. However, Kongo doesn't trust you and he goes back inside. Unfortunately, later on, Makoto tells you that Kongo committed suicide to atone for not catching Ugetsu, and that some Higan royalty is coming to Kugane. So you go with Makoto to guard the seaport. However, you find a bloody necklace that belonged to Kongo, and the two of you figure out that one of the Sekigumi killed Kongo. So your duo goes to the pleasure house to protect the royalty. However, Shiden is there as well, and he reveals a couple of things. he planned the attack on Makoto, killed Kongo, and he joined Ugetsu. Following this, you three get into a fight where a lot of Sekigumi back up Shiden. However, you and Makoto are saved by Kongo, who faked his death when Shiden attacked him, and a good Sekigumi who came with him. After the fight, Shiden commits suicide, swearing loyalty to Ugetsu. Then Kongo thanks you for your help and apologizes for his earlier demeanor. After a couple of days, the Sekigumi find Ugetsu's hideout in Yangtze, so Kongo sends you and Makoto to take him out. Unfortunately, Makoto realizes that it was a trap, so your duo rushes back to Sekigumi headquarters where Ugetsu fights Kongo in a duel. Unfortunately, Kongo loses and he passes away. Then Ugetsu reveals that Makoto is his sister and realizes that you're Musai's last pupil, which shocks the rest of the Sekigumi. After this, Ugetsu challenges you and the Sekigumi to fight at the Isle of Beko to settle this once and for all. Following this, Makoto is chosen as the leader of the Sekigumi first squad and asks her comrades to get ready to fight Ugetsu. Later on, Makoto reveals a few things. A long time ago, Ugetsu assassinated a high-ranking government official and their parents were executed for it, which forced Makoto to change her name and led her to join the Sekigumi to get revenge on Ugetsu for her parents. However, some of the Sekigumi are still hesitant to trust you and Makoto based on recent information, so you reveal that Musai also went by the name Kogarashi. Then the Sekigumi remember all of the stories they heard about the heroic samurai, but they're still hesitant about Makoto. But Momozigo arrives and tells the samurai to see Makoto as her own person, using Musai's words. Then Momozigo asks you to finish this and he leaves. Following this, you and the Sekigumi face Ugetsu and his followers. And after a tough fight, you defeat Ugetsu, but you don't kill him. You let Makoto have the finishing blow, but she hesitates. So Ugetsu tries to attack, but Makoto counters and protects the peace. Following this, you go on your adventures in Shadowbringers. But when you are in Kugane, you run into Makoto and she invites you to visit Musai's grave. However, when you're at the grave, you hear a disturbance and it's Ostrigan. He reveals that he wanted to turn over a new leaf and become Musai's pupil, only to find out that Musai died. On top of protecting the grave because someone is telling the story of Musai, making his grave a spectacle. But Makoto tells Ostrigan that Musai would enjoy the company and invites him to Kugane to become a real samurai. Following this, the three of you go back to Uldar to see Momozigo telling the story of Musai. So with Musai's story being told all over Eorzea, that is the end of the Final Fantasy XIV Samurai storyline. With that being said, if you want to see more timeline videos like this one or video essays on your favorite video games, like, comment, and subscribe with notifications turned on. But with that being said, it's been Skipx and I'm out.